Hello there, BookTube. My name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. Watermelon sugar, high. Watermelon sugar, high. Watermelon sugar, high. Watermelon sugar. I've got no rhythm. Today I want to do a reading catch-up. All the things that I've read, a whole bunch of books to go through, quite slim, many of them, but I'll take you through the last few books that I've read, some backlist, some front list, I'll bring you up to the present day. So one of the books that I picked up in London in the Ironbridge bookshop in Shropshire was this copy of The Big Clock by Kenneth Fearing. The Big Clock, in my mind, was the basis of the movie No Way Out, which is a fantastic Kevin Costner movie from the late 80s. And I'd always wanted to go back and read the original. I couldn't really imagine what a novel, or what a sort of noir, I knew it was an older book, what a noir novel that had inspired No Way Out was, but this is it. And essentially, it's, so the story that translates to No Way Out is a man is having an affair with the mistress of a more important man that he works for, and the mistress is killed, and the more important man asks his employee, the main protagonist, to investigate who murdered the mistress. And so he has to make out like he's leading the investigation without uncovering any clues that may lead to him having also been this woman's mistress. That's in general what the plot is. This is fantastic, a fantastic bit of noir. In the movie, I think he's somewhat thing in the Navy, and it's a senator, Gene Hackman plays the senator. And this is all set in the world of publishing in the 1940s, and so he has a whole investigative team that works on a sort of true crime magazine that he can then set to try and tracking down who got in what taxi and who was seen where and which bar were they at. Just a fantastically taut, claustrophobic little thriller with, I think, quite a satisfying ending, satisfyingly unsatisfying, but really brilliant bit of writing. This glorious Green Penguin edition, I think, was the first English paperback edition from the 1940s. It was just a delight to read this. I've read this without doing too much damage, and this will go on the shelf. The Big Clock by Kenneth Fearing. If you have any love for old noir, I think this would fit right into that. Just brilliant, just fantastic. As I say, in and out in 150 pages. It tells the whole story. 184 pages. I can't even see it. I'm going to put my glasses on to see how many pages are in this book. More, 180 pages. But taut, never lets up. The tension is always there. It keeps ratcheting up. It reads like thrillers that you've watched. So really just the source of all good. The Big Clock by Kenneth Fearing. After that, I read a book of poetry. This is Armada by Brian Patten, who is a famous Liverpudlian poet, famous in as much as he was one of the original Mersey poets in this great collection from the 60s, which was Adrian Henry, Roger McGough, and Brian Patten. And this was sort of essential, sort of contemporaneous to the Beatles, these Liverpudlian poets. That's why it's called the Mersey Sound. The Mersey is the river that runs through Liverpool, if you didn't know that. And the Beatles and Jerry and the Pacemakers and Freddie and the Dreamers, were they from? They were called the Mersey Sound back in the 63, 64. And so this was a contemporaneous poetry collection, which became very big as Liverpool was the cool place for a while. And so as a Beatles fan, this was a sort of essential purchase back when I was sort of reading everything around the Beatles. So Brian Patten, I've read a bit of Roger McGough since then. I haven't really followed up with Adrian Henry or Brian Patten. And then I read somewhere that there was this poem by Brian Patten, which has become the most read poem, or one of the most read requested poems at funerals. Obviously that, I'm not planning my funeral anytime soon. I probably won't be reading poetry there. But it piqued my interest to try and find out what this was. So I picked up this collection, which is a lot about mortality. This is from, I think, 2000 odd. He's still with us, I believe, Brian Patten. So This was before I got it. Liam got this in 1997, and then I've written my name underneath Liam's. I don't know who Liam is. But this was a lot about mortality all the way through. And then there's this poem, which I'll read. I don't know if I'll get through the whole thing, but this is the poem that is read at a lot of funerals, and it's called So Many Different Lengths of Time, and it has a little epigraph, I never know which, in Spanish from Pablo Neruda, and this is So Many Different Lengths of Time. How long is a man's life, finally? Is it 1,000 days or only one week, or a few centuries? How long does a man's death last? And what do we mean when we say gone forever? Adrift in such preoccupations, we seek clarification. We can go to philosophers, but they will grow tired of our questions. We can go to the priests and the rabbis, but they might be too busy with administrations. So how long does a man live, finally? And how much does he live while he lives? We fret and ask so many questions. Then, when it comes to us, the answer is so simple. A man lives for as long as we carry him inside us, for as long as we carry the harvest of his dreams, for as long as we ourselves live, holding memories in common. A man lives. His lover will carry his man's scent, his touch. His children will carry the weight of his love. One friend will carry his arguments, another will hum his favourite tunes, another will still share his terrors. And the days will pass with baffled faces, then the weeks, then the months. Then there will be a day when no question is asked, and the knots of grief will loosen in the stomach, and the puffed faces will calm. And on that day, he will not have ceased, but will have ceased to be separated by death. How long does a man live, finally? A man lives so many different lengths of time. I think that's a perfectly lovely poem, So Many Different Lengths of Time. And I was happy to have picked it up and bought a collection. I bought eBay, so maybe £1.75, £2, whatever it was. The whole collection is 80 odd pages. I will probably pick it up and read that poem again. Maybe I'd flick through and see some of the others. I just am not a good reader of poetry, but that was Armada by Brian Patton, with the poem particularly that I spoke about was, I've forgotten even the name, but So Many Different Lengths of Time is the name of the poem. Okay, after that I read this. From the sublime to the ridiculous. Reservoir Dogs, this is the original screenplay by Quentin Tarantino of his the first movie that he directed that was released. This is 1992. I'm not sure the movie had a big release in the States, but it was released in London and was showing in our house theatres. I saw this in the Camden Parkway in first run, where in 1992 I took I think she was probably then my fiance, who's now my wife. She was not best pleased. She didn't know what she was. I mean, she never knows. When I drag her to the cinema, she's got better about trying to investigate what kind of movie. If it has ray guns and people who can fly, she's less interested in it. This had neither, but she still didn't know what she was letting herself in for. And I thought it was spectacular, and still do. Reservoir Dogs. So reading the script, I have a script for Pulp Fiction, which I got when that movie came out, and I went and bought that, and never went back and picked this up. And I found this in that same Ironbridge bookshop. £2 this cost me, and great to have it in the library. I read through this; it's an absolute joy. By the way, the directions here make it very clear. Or make the answer to the question that was the number one question for cinephiles in the early 90s is who shot Nice Guy Eddie, and it's very clear. It says very clearly who shot who in the climax, in their sort of the Mexican standoff that takes place at the end of this movie. But all the way through, the banter is fabulous. The discussion about what Madonna meant when she was singing Like a Virgin is just hilariously male banter. And then the sort of violence, which all happens off screen, is nothing compared to the wit and the turning on its head the notion of what a heist movie is and what you see. You don't see any of the heist. You don't see any of the shooting. You see a lot of men with guns and a lot of confused, angry, violent criminals being angry, but you don't see them very often being violent, except right at the climax. Outstanding. Reservoir Dogs, Quentin Tarantino, is just as good on the page, and really enjoyed it. Glad to have it in the collection. I also read Knife by Salman Rushdie. I've read a fair bit of Rushdie's output, novels and his non-fiction, starting with his memoir, Joseph Anton, and then I read the first of his two collections of collected essays, and I've got the third one lined up, each one representing a decade. This is also a work of non-fiction, written and published since he was attacked and knifed on stage. Subsequently, he's lost sight in one eye, and is having physiotherapy to make sure that he can still use the arm that was badly wounded. it's pure Rushdie, which is the highest praise I can give to anything. This attack happened to a man in his 70s. So Joseph Anton, when we talk about writes about the fatwa and what it was like being in hiding. That was a man in his 40s and 50s. This is a man who was on stage 20 years after the fatwa seemed to have been lifted, and he is on stage, and a man comes towards him with a knife, and what the heck is going on out there? A man comes out. This is Friday morning. And I live opposite the shops, and all the cars are double, triple parked. And I imagine someone honking is because they're trying to get out and someone's parked over the back. Nightmare. This is a man who was in his 70s, and someone ran towards him with a knife and brutally attacked him, and he was stabbed in the neck and in the face and in the arm, and astonishingly survived. He talks about that feeling. He often talks about, he never mentions the attacker by name. He just calls him the assassin or the attacker. But he does talk about the intimacy of the moment, of those 43 seconds or whatever it was that the attack was taking place, and how close they were, and how he, having something plunged into you. It's not a sexual intimacy by any stretch, but their lives were entwined physically for that short space of time. And he also talks about the recovery. He talks about his wife at the time, still his wife, who was not there and flew out and sat with him through his recovery. He talks about what it meant and how it felt, and losing the eye, and how he relates to the world now, and the decision to write about it. And there's an astonishing chapter in here, one that only Salman Rushdie could write, where he invents a conversation between him and his attacker in prison. He has made a decision that he's not going to go. He sees no value in going and talking and confronting the attacker for, actually having a conversation with him. He doesn't think that would be fruitful, but instead he imagines a conversation, putting words into the mouth of the assassin and answering him. As I say, the precociousness of putting something like that in print and then pulling it off is only Salman Rushdie could do this. If you have any love of the man, any care for the freedom of speech and the ability to express oneself and the importance of that in the world, and the necessity of art and literature winning over violence and terrorism and anti-art, anti-liberality, then Knife, I think, is a perfectly easy, quick read, about 200 pages or so. Love this nice big print. I am glad that Salman Rushdie survived this attack to write this book, and I hope he'll write more. Knife by Salman Rushdie. Then I started another new series because, I don't have enough on-the-go series, and I'm always looking for something new. And I picked this up. This is called Fortune Favors the Dead by Stephen Spotswood. And this is about two detectives in New York. So the book starts in 1942, then jumps forward to 1945 and the ongoing cases. So in 1942, these two characters meet, and the two characters are Lillian Pentecost and Willow Jean Parker, two women. Lillian Pentecost is a famous detective, and Willow Jean Parker becomes her assistant, helper, live-in co-detective, whatever. We've seen the nature of these relationships play out all, from Holmes and Watson through to any number of detective series where there is a senior detective and a junior detective who. I'm just going to pause and have a drink. 1 second. How do I pause? Yeah, sorry about that. Very dry here. The air conditioning's off, but so I was talking about Fortune Favors the Dead, Stephen Spotswood, Lillian Pentecost, and Willow Jean Parker. So Holmes and Watson, any number of detective series where there is a senior partner and a junior partner, or the senior partner does the thinking, the junior partner is the muscle, and this kind of subverts all of that by having these two women. Lillian Pentecost is a woman with a debilitating disease, a progressively debilitating disease. So she has good days and she has bad days, but physically she's not a strong person. And Willow Jean Parker's background is she was brought up in the circus. So that's it's just fun. I found the relationship between the two of them believable. It's all narrated as these things always are by the junior partner. So Will, as she's known, is the Dr. Watson character who has her own strengths and foibles and interests and things that drive her and backstory. And this, was a solid noir set in 1945, and someone is murdered. Is it a locked room mystery? Was there a previous thing? What's the backstory? How much of it? The children and the ex-lover and this and that. Just solid detective work. I'm not a big fan necessarily of period stuff. I like my noir set in the here and now. So either written contemporaneously, Chandler and et al., or if it's going to be written today, I like it to be set in the here and now. And this is I think from 2020, so fairly recent. And I think he's already up to the 5th in the series, and this is the first, but it's set in the 40s. So it wouldn't necessarily be my favorite way of doing things, but this was moving and witty, and good detective work, and solid, satisfying conclusion that I didn't necessarily see coming. I like this very much. Fortune Favours the Dead, really good. After that, I read Orbital by Samantha Harvey, longlisted for this year's Booker Prize. A relatively short novel. Again, how many pages have we got here? 150 odd, 136. So read this in an afternoon, and fantastic. I actually really enjoyed this. I tend to be more a fan of novels with plots and character-driven, and this is a little more philosophizing. But there are 6 characters on a space station. Each of them has something going on. Each of them has something to contribute to what's happening in, how they're relating to them, circumnavigating the planet several times a day, and what that brings out from their own lives and their own histories and their relationships, and how that plays out. There's a lot going on here in 150 pages, and I think it kind of works. I think it's hard for something this size to have the impact necessary perhaps to win the prize, but I think anyone coming across this, and as I say, it's not necessarily my favorite kind of novel, but anyone coming across this, I think would do very well and enjoy this very much. It's thoughtful, but the writing is just beautiful, and the ideas that it's bringing out about humanity, about our relationship to the planet, how that sense of remove. We have these characters who are just off planet, and yet then get to see the whole world, and the weather as it goes by, and the continents as they fly by, and that sense of remove, the way that allows us to consider humanity when you can see it all through the porthole of the space station. Orbital by Samantha Harvey worked for me. And then I read Magnolia Woo, Unfolds It All. This is a middle grade novel. I don't read a lot of young fiction or fiction aimed at children. This says on the back, it says specifically ages 7 to 11. And the reason I picked that, and it's blurbed by Abby Hanlon, who I'm told is the author of Dory Phantasmagory. I have not read Dory Phantasmagory, but I think it's a fantastic name for a book. And I also think Magnolia Woo, Unfolds It All is a fantastic name for a book. The reason why I picked this up of all the young fiction or the youth-oriented fiction is because the author, Chanel Miller. If you don't know who Chanel Miller is, this is her second book. Her first book was called Know My Name, and it's a memoir / autobiography that I would recommend possibly above and beyond anything else that I might recommend. It's just an astonishing book and I decided at the end of that I really would have probably followed Chanel Miller into anywhere that she wanted to lead me. And what she really wanted to do after that book and the experience that she had before and after writing that book was to write and illustrate children's books. And this is her first one. Magnolia Woo unfolds it all. I started crying fairly near the beginning and cried all the way through it. Magnolia Woo is a young girl in New York who struggles to find friends. She spends most of her days in the summer in the laundrette that her parents run in Manhattan, and isn't great at meeting and making friends with people. And this is a story of the summer where she meets a friend, another girl who also with a flower name, a girl called Iris, and I have a daughter who has a flower name, so I have a special appreciation for Magnolia and Iris. And together they decide that they are going to take on a mammoth task, which is find out all they have. Magnolia keeps a board of all the lost socks, the single socks pinned up in her laundromat, and her and Iris decide together they will become sock detectives and find out to whom each of these missing socks belongs, and they just use their minds to look at the sock, see what kind of sock it is, and based on that determine who might have its pair. Really, really lovely. I say I sort of cried all the way through and found it a joyous work. That's Magnolia Woo, unfolds it all. If you like Chanel Miller, no reason why you wouldn't like this. If you don't know who Chanel Miller is, you might like this anyway, but I suggest you read Know My Name anyway, whether you read that and Magnolia Woo. And then after that, I am now reading, and I'll probably read a lot over Shabbat, Siddhartha Mukherjee's The Emperor of All Maladies, which I bought cheaply on eBay last year, and then it just now was on the list, the New York Times top 100 books of the 21st century. This appeared in, I thought it was good times any to pick it up. This is a biography of cancer. Siddhartha Mukherjee is a doctor who was doing, I think, a PhD about cancer and specifically about his patients, and ended up writing an entire book. This is about 12 years ago, I think it's 2011, 2010, something like that, and has been widely admired since then, and I always thought I should get to it, and now I have. I read the first 10 pages and said, okay, this is going to be something that I enjoy, and that's The Emperor of All Maladies. I'll let you know how that goes, and that's my roundup. Take care, God bless, bye.